Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, regional troops, jets and forces assemble on the Senegalese border as the last few hours of the Gambian president's mandate runs out. Regional military intervention is a possibility as Yayah Jammeh digs his heels in, insisting that he's staying put. Also, more than 60 people are killed in a suicide attack in the northern Malian city of Gao. The Islamist extremist group Al-Morabitoun claims responsibility for the bombing of a military camp. And the death toll from the accidental bombing of a refugee camp in Borno state by the Nigerian Air Force sees itself rise to at least 70. This as calls for compensation for the victims grows. Well, first, Gambia is heading towards a midnight political showdown. President Yayah Jammeh is still refusing to leave office just hours before the end of his mandate and the scheduled inauguration of his elected successor, Adama Barrow. In a Hail Mary move on Wednesday, Parliament voted to extend Jammeh's term by 3 months, a day after he declared a state of emergency in the country. Now, regional bloc ECOWAS is having none of it and has threatened military intervention if Jammeh doesn't step aside. The Senegalese military has moved troops to its border. Nigeria has sent warships towards Gambia and fighter jets and soldiers to Senegal. Ghana's also sent a contingent. Now, our Katerina Hoji joins us to tell us a bit more about what's going on at the moment. Katerina, so there are clearly some serious preparations for regional military intervention. There's not long to go now. Do you think it's likely to come to that?
Definitely, there are some serious preparations. We have 5 countries right now in Senegal resembling the forces moving towards the Senegalese border with Gambia. We all know we already have several Senegalese troops by the border waiting to go into the country at midnight if President Yayah does not agree to step down. What we're seeing here in Banjul are completely deserted streets. No one dares to go out. Shopkeepers close their shops already at 5 p.m. this afternoon, afraid of what's going to happen tonight and especially what the aftermath will be tomorrow and coming days.
So on Wednesday, we saw Parliament vote to extend Jammeh's term. Is this in any way legitimate, bearing in mind the constitutional requirement for a handover? Will it have any effect on Adama Barrow's inauguration on Thursday?
What Jammeh has done is completely unconstitutional. It's basically a symbolic move to try and stay in power. Likely has been told by his advisors that this would stop Mr. Barrow from being inaugurated. But the fact is that President Jammeh's term is ending tomorrow, and that's what we have known since the December elections where Mr. Barrow won a majority. Also, what we know from here in Bangui is that they've had enough of Jammeh and they want him to leave. Hopefully, there's still mediations going on here in Banjul. Maybe Jammeh still has a way out without that this will come down to a political showdown. But again, we have ECOWAS troops on the borders, so we'll see what happens later tonight.
Thanks very much, Katerina Hoji, there for us in Banjul. Now, more than 60 people have been killed in a suicide attack in the northern Malian city of Gao. Islamist extremist group Al-Morabitoun has claimed responsibility for the bombing of the military camp. The violence is a setback to peace efforts, as Nicholas Schumar tells us.
It's the bloodiest attack in Mali's recent history. A vehicle packed with explosives targeted a camp in Gao, where armed groups who have signed a peace deal agreement were based. Former rebels and pro-government movements lived there. They were preparing to patrol the town with Malian soldiers. The UN said the camp hosted 600 fighters.
It's very clear that this terrorist attack targeted all the different movements and all those who are working for peace. And this will only strengthen the desire of these people who were targeted to keep going and move forwards.
On Wednesday evening, Al-Morabitoun claimed responsibility for the attack. Mokhtar Belmokhtar's group joined Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb in 2015. Gao is the biggest town in northern Mali. French President François Hollande was there only 5 days ago. The French army has a base there. It helped Malian troops push back jihadists in 2013. They had been occupying northern Mali. but they still carry out sporadic attacks in the region. Never before had they managed to kill so many people in one go. Mali's president, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, declared 3 days of national mourning.
Now, the death toll from the accidental bombing of a refugee camp in Borno State by the Nigerian Air Force has risen to at least 70. The victims were mainly people displaced by the Boko Haram insurgency and aid workers who'd been distributing food at the camp. The military's put the miscalculation down to the fog of war. Many Nigerians are shocked at the scale of the mistake.
They will keep saying regrettable events. I felt bad for them because these are Nigerians who came for refuge, who came to stay in IDP camp for safety. So this happening to them is very, very unfortunate. They will keep saying it is a mistake. We are in a country that every morning we wake up, we keep hearing stories. They are not helping us. They are adding more to our problems.
Now, the military had been trying to target Boko Haram extremists at the time. Calls for compensations for the civilian victims are growing, even as aid workers still on the ground scramble to help those in critical condition. The International Committee of the Red Cross lost at least 6 members of its Nigerian affiliates at the time.
We are providing psychosocial support to all our staff and volunteers in Borno branch so that they can easily recover from the shock they are presently facing. Because even when the insurgency was at its peak, we never lost any staff or volunteer.
Well, on Wednesday, Obama gave his final press conference. It was always going to be hard for the outgoing US president to live up to expectations in Africa. The first black US president was seen as the continent's prodigal son who would understand what they needed in a way that white presidents never could. But after 8 years in power, his legacy on the continent is as much symbolic as it is physical.
The United States' first African-American president, a powerful symbol for the world and especially for Africa.
Hello, everybody.
Obama made 4 visits to the continent during his 8 years in office, starting with Egypt and Ghana in 2009. He spoke about Africa rising, encouraging a new generation to be optimistic about their future.
I wanted to be here because Africa is on the move. Africa is one of the fastest growing regions of the world.
And they loved him for it. Crowds lined the streets and filled halls and stadiums. In Kenya, they painted buses in his honour. In South Africa, thousands braved torrential rain to hear him speak at Mandela's memorial service.
He has a resemblance with Mandela. I like the fact that he reminds us of Mandela.
After we have spoken, I thought that I can go. I've only came for Obama's speech.
As well as words, there were practical contributions too. Obama launched Power Africa, a multi-billion-dollar plan to double electricity output across the continent by 2030. And he set up a US base in Niger to tackle terrorism in West Africa. But it was always going to be hard for his actions to live up to the sky-high expectations.
It was more of an emotional thing than anything else. There was a lot of hysteria, attachment, because he's one of us. But in terms of tangibility, economic tangibility, there's not much.
As Obama steps down, he's promised to spend more time in Africa, a continent that's been inspired by his words, but disappointed by his actions.
And finally, we leave you with the sounds of one of my favourite Nigerian musicians. And I was far from alone. Enigmatic till the end, William Onyeabor made his funky synth sounds in the 70s and 80s before disappearing from the public eye for decades. But his influence never faded from view, and his hits recently enjoyed a revival. He, though, stayed out of the public eye and passed away aged 70 in his sleep at his home in southeastern Nigeria this week. Well, we hope you enjoy his sounds and join us again for Eye on Africa when you can. Take care.